Hi there. I'm making this video just to explain how this Intersystems HL7v2 browser extension works that I created for my team at Royal Devon. So the first thing you want to do is go to GitHub/rubsodd/ruder Intersystems HL7v2 browser extension. You're going to click on code and download zip. That'll download the zip. So then you go to downloads and you will right click, extract all, just extract it. Okay, so now we've got our folder there. Once you've extracted your folder, you can go to your browser and you go to your extensions section, which is, okay, so you can either get to it here, so manage extensions, or I think you can right click this up here or left click it, yeah, manage extensions. So you want to enable developer mode, which is this button up here. Click that to enable it, and then you can load unpacked extensions. Click that button. Then once you've clicked it, you can navigate to your downloads, look at the folder you extracted, open the first one, and then it's the second one called Ruder in RDUH Intersystems HL7v2 browser extension main. So select that folder. So you can see one here that I have been using previously, but this is the one I've just installed. So that is now installed on my browser. It will be different for Firefox or whatever browser you use, but I'm going to pin this up here. I find that the most useful thing to do. And then the first thing we want to do is navigate to the options page. So I made it quite easy. I've added an options button there, or you can right click and click options. It doesn't matter either. So now we've got to our options page. So to use the features in this, some of them require that you have built out your instances and namespaces. So if we scroll down, you can see we've got no instances yet. So I'm going to call this test. So you might want to add one for your test instance, one for your production instance. I'm going to add the domain now, so I'm just going to copy this bit. We don't want any other information there, we just want the first bit. So remove trailing slash. I'm going to go remove HTTPS as well, and slashes at the start. Then I'm going to select a color for this instance. So this is really good if you really want to identify the quickly identify between test and production. I'm going to go green and I'm going to click save. Once I've added an instance and I can select it here, I can then choose a namespace. So we're working in the user namespace today, so I'm going to call this user, capitalized for my name. That's what's going to appear in my tabs in a second, and then my slug is as the namespace appears in the URL. So if we have a look here, after CSP it says user, so I'm just going to get that. Click save. Instance is saved, so now we can click set that instance and then the user will appear there. So that tells us that that has been done. So at the moment we've got an instance and a namespace, but if I refresh this, see, nothing will happen. So we need to enable our features. So I'm going to click auto tab, so that one, and custom header colors. So I'll click update, you'll see the settings are saved, and then I can refresh this page. Straight away you can see the top has gone green and we've got test in the tab group at the top. The colors I've chosen, by the way, are kind of limited by the tab group colors up here. If you feel the need, you can edit the CSS files that are in the extension as much as you like. Cool, so the header goes green, and that's because I've selected the custom header colors. I'm also going to click auto tab, sort by namespace now, update, and then when I refresh this, we should get the namespace in the tab group as well. Cool, and that will only auto group by the namespaces that you have provided in the namespace section here. So if it's not in that namespace, so say we go to the, click home, I'll switch namespace here, and we go to system, we're not going to get that namespace there. So it just disappears and just becomes test. Okay, so once we've done that, we can enable another feature, which is the homepage reports. Now this is a little laggy, touch glitchy, but it does work. I'm going to click update, so that's enabled that now. And what happens is if I refresh this, you can see now that we are iterating through the available productions that are on the right hand side that are currently running, and it will get any business components that are not currently green or disabled. So that say there's something wrong with them. For example, this one's light green. So I'm going to click it and that will take me to the production. And we can have a look that the rest of these components are all fine. This one's disabled, so that didn't appear, but this one is green and that has appeared there. The system namespace is unique because it cycles through all of these namespaces, all of the running productions. But if you go to a particular namespace, for example, the user one, it just swaps out this section, but it only looks through this particular namespace. As I've only got one running at the moment, you can't see a difference. But if you had 5 running, you'd go to the system namespace and that will look for all those components that aren't currently working. Okay, so back here, let's have a look at my README file. So that's the auto tab feature, the header colors, and the reports. We're going to have a look at the message search now. So if I go to my message viewer, so I'm on my production, go to my message viewer, you'll see a couple of different things on this page that you won't usually see. So you've got the selected messages tab up here and the search history tab. We're going to look at that in a second. So I click search, and I'm going to come to my contents, and you also see a load of buttons here that you won't have seen before. The message search is a feature that makes it quicker to add these criteria on the left. So say I've got this particular message here and I want to find all messages where PID3 contains the KB00613. Just highlight the text, right click, and I can come down to this context menu here and it says search in message viewer, and I have different search options. I'm going to click search in message viewer because there's no current start time on the left hand side here. It should add today's in, and it will add that MRN into the search. So there you go, you can see it's been added and it's searched. Because that message isn't from today, it won't have found it. So if I go last week, there we go. So it found all the messages with that MRN in the PID3 section. If I wanted to search a different MRN, instead of highlighting the text, I can just right click it and search in message viewer. Clicking search in message viewer now, it's got a time in it, it won't have changed it, so this will remain. And it just stops here so that you can add your own MRN in. I'm not going to add one in, I'm just going to click cancel. And there you go. So that's the message search function. That also works on a full contents page, so if you're over here and you want to search for something, you can do exactly the same thing, highlight, right click, search in message viewer, and it'll just open the next tab and add that criteria on. That is a little bit buggy because sometimes it's got the a cached version of your extended criteria on the left hand side, but in general it does work. Cool. That should save you some time, hopefully, doing some of your searches. The next feature is open session. Okay, so we've got this message here, we've got this, it says session 15. I had an idea that we could speed up some of our session finding from third-party services. So if I'm in a third-party service, I've got a HL7 message in front of me. If I could append the session ID to the MSH segment somewhere, then when I'm coming from that third-party back to the tie, back to Intersystems, I could just take that session ID out of the HL7 message and then add it. So if you click on the extension icon up here and then click open session, you just add that ID in here and click open, and it should just take you straight to the visual trace for that message. And of course that hasn't worked. Oh, and I can tell you why that hasn't worked, and that's because there's one little odd thing in my extension, is that it's got health share here because our instance does and this one doesn't. So there you go, session 15. Just something to be aware of. You can go and edit that in the code if you want to on the trace viewer tab. It's on the in the pop-up file. But yeah, so it comes straight to the session. So that would be really useful for navigating to and finding out what's been happening in messages really quickly. So we've got the selected message section here. So if I come back to my message viewer, so you've got our selected message viewer messages tab. I'm going to click search. I'm actually going to get rid of that. Click search, select my messages, and if I click on selected messages, you can see now that our selected messages are here. Add another one. There you go, and it appears there. Now that's kind of useful if you want to use some of the tools that I've got available here to compare messages. What I'm going to do is, so I'll just run you briefly through these buttons. They're available here in selected messages, in the contents tab as well, some of them, and then elsewhere as well. But you can minimize all the messages, so if you've selected ones that you don't actually want to see for a second and you just want to open it again, you can close them, which will just remove them from that. It doesn't actually deselect them, but it will remove them from the section here. If you want to have a better view of the message, you can click the wrap rows button, which will wrap these rows and make it easier to see the entire text without having to use the scroll bar that's here. You can also use the text compare feature. So if I click this, it's got its own legend. You can read that through that at your will, but it basically enables you to hover over different sections and it will compare all the messages that are currently open together. So you can see here, I'm comparing this segment with the top segment. It just says the MHA segments are different. Could be useful for checking between messages pre and post transform to see whether a certain segment is different or not. And then you can go to individual fields and check them like so, and it will do various searches. So it will compare the same field in the same row that it's found. Also, it will look for that text in other fields as well. It'll look up to 3 characters. Anything below 3 characters is not going to perform a search because you could get an R, for example, anywhere. Useful for stuff like MRNs, finding if they're embedded in other places, and order numbers and things like that. Okay, so that's the text compare. Like I said, you got the legend there that will help. The last button here is the copy share link. Actually, you've got the copy raw text as well, which does as it says on the tin. It copies the raw text from the message. So I'll click that and I'll wherever you like, and it will paste out the raw message. Then the copy share link button here, if I click that one, it's up here. You can see that it's opened those 2 messages that I had opened in this selected messages section. So it's a good way of saving a few messages and then pasting them and then just coming back to them at a later date without having to redo the search. You know which messages you were looking for because they're just saved in the URL. It does rely on you not having purged those messages, because if they purge, then it won't be able to find them because they won't exist. So that is the selected messages tab. Sometimes when you click back on the contents tab the first time, it doesn't click straight away, so just click body and contents back and it'll be fine. Okay, so that's the share link. The full trace tab. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to show you, actually I'm not going to navigate away from here just yet. I'm going to show you the search history. So if we click on this button here, you'll see the searches that I have done previously. It just records the instance and the namespace and the time that you did that search, along with the criteria that you've added. It won't add the same criteria twice as a group, so it doesn't compare and to all previous searches. If this one existed, it wouldn't have put it in. I can see it existed down here, but the tick was checked this time and it wasn't here. So it won't, if you're coming back and do the same search again, it's not going to fill this up. The use for this is, say you want to perform a search in test and then you want to do the same search in production, and and you want to remember what you searched, or if you want to easily add those search items back in. So for a few things, like mainly HL7 messages, because that's what I work in, you can click on them on these criteria and they will add in. So if I click on this, it'll add the message header one in, so the header value, so it's added that one back in. We already had it, so we didn't need it. Or this one, for example, it works with the VDoc segment field and it's added it back in over here. It also works with the VDoc property path, but that's really all it works with, is the header, VDoc segment, VDoc property, and then the class has to be the HL7 as well. But neat little feature just for switching between test and production and trying to find the same sorts of messages again. Cool. You can delete these searches as well. So if you don't want patient data in there, you just delete them and they're gone. And this doesn't tend to keep stuff very long either. So yeah, once you're done and you've got any patient identifier information in there, just come in and close them, and that deletes it out. It's all stored locally in your browser settings. None of it's synced to the cloud, so you don't have to worry about that. Cool. That's the search history. We do have a couple of extra buttons that I didn't show you from the last one. So we've got the expand all button here. That expands the schema for your message. So you can see now that you've got your MSH schema here. Basically what it does, if I hover over this, it just takes that hovered section, which I think is the title, iterates through it, and it just creates a little table with all the information in it. You can use the text compare with that as well at the same time, I believe. There you go. Oh, you can't hover over these ones, but you can hover over these and it'll do the search. So it's just another way of looking at your message and reading it. To close it, you can either click expand all again, or you can come over here and click either of these two columns and open up individual segments. And you can do that on anywhere you are. So if you're in here, you can do that. You can do that on the selected messages tab as well. Sometimes that happens. So just to help you look at the schema, it is limited by the available fields. So if there was an MSA3 available, but it's not actually in the message, it can't find it. It doesn't go and look for anything. It just looks, it just gets the stuff from the titles in this message. So it's useful, but it is limited. And then the other thing I wanted to show you here, again, we've got the rep rows, copy raw text. That only works for this message, and that's important because if you have more than one message open, so if I got that message open, let me also open this one. Beautiful content. So I've got these two messages open. This import message section will look for any message content viewer tabs that you currently have open. So this one's currently found this one over here. And if I click this and then I click import, it's actually just pulled in the message from over here to over here, so that I can now perform my text compares or whatever I want to do. There you go. Useful for comparing two messages, for example, between test and production, or if you have two completely different instances, right, for two different sites, anything like that really. So that's that one. Let's go back and see what I haven't shown you yet. Okay, we've got the trace. So I added another tab on the full trace page, on the visual trace page. You can see here it says full trace. This is glitch. It should be green the entire way. I will edit that. See the full trace tab here. In fact, this is going to work because I know what I've done. Oh, it has worked. Excellent. We've got the full trace tab here, and what that will do is it just pulls in all the messages from the available messages over here. It doesn't really like non-HL7 messages like this one, for example. The minimize button on here is not going to work. You can just delete it. Click across to get rid of it. Here we have the reopen closed button as well, because on the selected tabs one, you can just reselect it to open it again. But here you have to click that, and that will bring that back. You can copy the raw text again with all those messages. It's the same features with the drop down schema. There you go. So you can jot down the schema and read that through. Text compare again works here. Legend just in case you forget, and you can wrap your rows again. Also got the minimize all button. You can click to minimize all, and then you just select which ones you want to open again. Okay, so I've got another feature to show you. I've got to find the right message now. So if you ever have a message with a embedded PDF in it, let's click this one. You had to click raw contents on these ones. So if you have an embedded PDF that's base64 encoded and you're not really sure how to open it, you can find the base64 encoded string, get to the start of it, and then Control Shift down, and that'll get all the way to the end. It doesn't matter if there are any pipes at the end of it, because I've stripped those off. So if there are any fields after this OBX segment here, it doesn't matter. So I can highlight it and I can paste it into my PDF viewer string here. So click on your extension icon, go to PDF viewer, paste that in, click open this PDF, and that'll open that PDF for you. The other way of doing it is just to highlight it. You don't have to copy and paste, you can just right click, and then there's a context menu, click open as PDF, and it will open it for you. It's quite useful if you're working on interfaces that have documents embedded in PDFs. Okay, that's that one. I think there's a couple more features. We've got the tie links bookmark. I'm not going to click it because it's going to show you our tie, because I've made modifications to this and I didn't want to have to rebuild it. But basically, the first time you load up the extension, it will create you a bookmark folder. And it will have all your instances and all your namespaces for each of your instances in their own folders. And if you want to rebuild it, you just have to delete it and then turn the extension off and on. I should have made a button for that, really, shouldn't I? So if you go to the manage extension page, you just turn it off and then on again, and it will rebuild that folder for you with any new namespaces that you have added. It won't update, it just stays there. It checks to see that particular title is there. If you want to change that, you'd have to do it in the code. Yeah, so don't change that folder title unless you want it to create a new folder every single time that you restart that extension. Cool, there's just a couple more bits on the message viewer page. A couple of things I think are more useful for Ensemble users. This time format, as you can see here, defaults to complete. In Ensemble, at least in our instance, it didn't. It did time only, and that used to annoy everybody. So I made a button on the options page where you can click time format complete as default, and that would automatically switch it to complete from whatever it was on. And the same thing with the sort order, oldest first as default. You can do that, and then when you've refreshed the page, I'll click update. It says newest first here. It should switch to oldest. There you go. So switch to oldest first for us. I believe that is all of the features. If you get a bit stuck, you can always read through the README file. Got all this information here on basically what I was thinking when I made each of these, how to use it, and then what I was thinking when I was building them, why it would be useful. Ideal. I hope you enjoy it. I hope it works for you. I'm not planning on supporting it. I've been told I'm not allowed to support it. So if you want to make any edits, you want it to work for you, feel free to just go on GitHub, download it, edit it. Just don't try and sell it to anyone, and enjoy. Thank you.